Hello everyone and welcome to the conclusion of the first day of the World Blitz Championship. There were a lot of games you guys thought that I should show, but I thought this one was the most fitting as it features none other than Praggnanandhaa, who, well, is talented and skillful enough to win both the Rapid and Blitz, and also as he faces Volodar Murzin, who is the reigning World Rapid Champion, and two of them faced each other in Rapid World Championship. It was in the penultimate round, and Volodar defeated Praggnanandhaa with the black pieces. And also, we mentioned in that video that Volodar also defeated Praggnanandhaa in the World Rapid Championship in 2023 last year. This, however, is not played in the penultimate round. This is the Blitz section, and this is, I actually searched does the term even exist, but as it turns out it does. The round before the penultimate round is actually called the anti-penultimate round, and this is that round. And then I searched even further because I thought, well, surely the round before that doesn't have a term of its own, and it actually does. The round before the anti-penultimate round is called the pre-anti-penultimate round, and this is where I stopped my research, as, I mean, who knows what I might discover. But just in case you guys were wondering, yes, they do have names, the rounds. Now, let's check it out. Volodar with white opens with pawn to d4, and we're going to discuss the standings and the matchups for the for the knockout stage after we check out this game, but I thought it is very important to show. So d4, and Pragg goes for pawn to e6. This is the Horowitz defense, and it basically asks white, are you sure you want to play a d4 game? Maybe you just want to play e4 now, and then we play the Franje defense, or you play something else. You play maybe pawn to c4. Pawn to c4 is the top move in this position, everyone's favorite. Knight to f3 can also be played, and Volodar goes just for that. Knight to f3, we have knight f6, and he plays bishop to f4, opting for a London system setup. We have pawn to b6 by Pragg, preparing to fianchetto the light square bishop. e3, we have bishop to b7, knight b to d2, and now knight to h5. Attacking the bishop, we have bishop to g5, attacks the queen, and the bishop to e7. We have bishop captures on e7, queen captures, and bishop to d3. So the standard London system setup, you give out, you trade off your dark square bishop, you will put your pawns on dark squares, and you will have a strong light square bishop to wreak havoc in between them. And also Pragg will have an amazing dark square bishop. So we have castles kingside, and there is a game where queen to e2 was played. Here we have pawn to c3, which is a pretty standard idea in this setup, but it is not as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So, okay, pawn to f5. Pragg also says, all right, I have an amazing bishop. My knight already moved from f6, so I can play pawn to f5. The rook is there to support the pawn, so it definitely makes sense. Pawn to f5, the white king is still in the center of the board. Queen to e2, Volodar saying I might castle kingside, but I also might castle queenside, so be very careful what your next move is. And Pragg goes pawn to c5. He says, all right, I will attack the center, so wherever you castle, my move definitely makes sense. And now, while the castles queenside is actually the engine stop recommendation, Volodar castles kingside, and this will make it a bit easier for Pragg to attack if Pragg wishes to attack. And indeed, the best way to continue is pawn to g5. But probably losing to Volodar in the rapid time section, and also maybe last year, Pragg decides to, well, maybe slow down a little bit. He plays knight to c6. He can always play g5, so, no need to rush. We have pawn to a3, d6, and now rook f to e1. We have king to h6. Here, rook to e1 may be a bit of a slow move. Pawn to b4 is preferred, but pawn to b4 is always preferred. We have king to h8 by Pragg, preparing maybe rook g8, and then pawn to g5. Knight to f1, and now knight back to f6. We have knight to g3, and Pragg strikes in the center. Pawn to d5, we have bishop to b5, and now not allowing the trade of bishop for knight, knight to d8. Preparing knight to f7, and then in the future, well, who knows, maybe we have support for e5, maybe the knight comes to g5 to h6. Many things become possible. We have knight to e5, as the square has now been vacated from the grasp of the Dark Knight. Knight to f7 offering a trade, and now pawn to f4. Volodar says, all right, if you capture, I'm just going to capture, even though you would prefer the e file open so you can put pressure on that backwards e6 pawn. There doesn't seem to be a good way to do that. So rook to g8, we have knight to h5, now offering a trade of knights, and knight to e4. Pragg says, all right, you have a very active knight on e5, I'm going to have a very active knight on e4. e4. Knight back to g3, offering a trade, and knight back to f6. Volodar repeats, knight to h5. Pragg also repeats knight e4, and Volodar again repeats with knight to g3. And should Pragg repeat with knight to f6, it's going to be a draw by threefold repetition. So Pragg decides against this. He goes knight e to d6. He wants to continue playing this, and we all know what that means. If you want to continue playing this, you will have to play g5 at some point. We have bishop back to d3, and indeed Pragg lounges forward with pawn to g5. Okay, queen to h5. And yeah, let me just really quickly fix this. You guys said that you would prefer the clock times, and yesterday something was wrong with the interface, so I couldn't get the clock times to be fully operational, but now they are. I just haven't enabled them. So there you have it. We're already down below 30 seconds, 19 seconds for Volodar, and 22 seconds for Pragg. There is the 2 seconds increment. And the question is, what do you play here? So, of course, Pragg will not capture, even though it seems like a great idea. Yes, you want the G file open or semi-open, but if you capture, you also open up the E file, and that's just going to be pretty bad. If you capture now, rook will capture, and then the other rook comes to E1, and you have problems here. The E6 pawn is extremely weak. So after queen to H5, we have pawn to G4, and now rook A to D1. We have knight captures on E5 by Pragg, D captures on E5, and now comes knight to F7. And this is one of those sad moments in chess. Well, sad for one party and a joyous one for the other party, but here knight to e8 should be played. But Pragg played knight to f7, and do you see what the problem is with knight to f7? It's such an exquisite moment because players are down to 10 seconds on the clock. Of course, it is impossible to calculate everything, but you know, you will feel awesome if you realize why this is wrong. So have at it. What do you play here as white? The move to play is pawn to c4, and now that you see it, of course, you also believe it. It is time to undermine black's center, and even at the expense of sacrificing a piece here, because not only will you get a checkmating attack against the black king, but also as this pawn chain gets weakened, c captures on d5 will create a massive center for white. Now, why is knight to f7 such a big deal? Well, I will show you one line that really shows why this is so. Because here, if you play rook to g6, let's say, okay, you just want to add a nice defender here, bishop captures on f5, as we've said, and now, of course, you don't want to capture and allow what we've discussed. You're going to play rook to h6, and now queen captures on g4, rook to g8, attacking the queen, and okay, once the queen finally moves, you will capture that bishop. Knight captures on f5 with the fork here, queen to e6, and now you're going to capture the rook. Captures, or even better, maybe knight captures, and after c captures on d5, yes, you can play bishop captures, but e4, okay, you do have a knight and bishop for a rook, but, you know, with the position open like this and with the pawns marching forward, it's going to be a much better position for white, a winning one at that. So the reason why the knight belongs on e8 and not on f7 is, well, let's just go back to the position where knight to f7 was played. Had Pragg played knight to e8, this does not work, because now c4 can be met with rook g6, and after bishop captures on f5, you do not have to react the way you would if the knight was on f7, because here you have knight g7. That's the key difference, attacking the queen and the bishop, and now white has nothing better than to give up the queen for some pieces here, and it's still equalish, but black is better. However, after knight to f7, this simply does not work, and c4 breaks through the position. Pragg plays pawn to d4, much better than d captures on c4. D captures on c4 is met with knight captures on f5, which attacks the queen, and after e captures and bishop captures, mate being threatened here, you can defend, but now rook to d7, and you just resign here. The queen is hanging, the bishop is hanging. I mean, there's no way to play this. So after pawn to c4, pawn to d4 by Pragg, which is much better, and it nicely opens up the dark square bishop. Pawn to e4. Again, Volodar does not misses the target. The key is to undermine the e6 pawn, basically. F captures on e4, and now knight captures on e4. And now, even with the position closed like this, you still cannot capture on e4, because if you capture, then mate is being threatened, and also your rook on a8 is hanging. So Pragg has to defend. He plays rook to g7, and now comes knight to f6. Okay, the mate threat is not yet there, but what do you play? Pawn to h6, the knight nicely defends, but now bishop to g6, threatening to remove the defender of the h6 pawn. Queen to f8, saying, okay, if you capture my queen, we'll be guarding the pawn, but now just knight captures on g4, and the position is dead loss for Pragg. There is nothing he can do here. He tries giving up the exchange, rook captures on g6, we have queen captures on g6, and now queen to g7 going into an endgame, but Volodar not afraid. Even with so little time on the clock, he has already proven himself that he can play under any circumstances. Queen captures, king captures, and now knight to f6. And Pragg does have, well, some compensation, but not nearly enough. He goes bishop to a6, attacks the pawn, b3, we have pawn to b5, he wants to open up some lines here. C captures, we have bishop captures, and now rook to c1, going after the c pawn. Rook to c8, defending, and now knight to e4, attacking the c5 pawn, so pawn to c4. We have b captures on c4, and now not even capturing with bishop captures on c4, bishop to a4, trying to control that queening square. Maybe you can advance the past d pawn. Rook to e2, and now knight to d8. We have rook to d2, rook to b8, and now rook captures on d4. We have king to g6, activating the king, knight to c5, attacking the bishop on a4, bishop to c6, and now rook to d6, going after the e6 pawn, and not a lot for Pragg to do here. Unfortunately, this is over. King to f5. We have rook c back to rook c to d1, threatening to pick up the knight here. Rook to b2, trying to give up the knight. Maybe some last idea of a counterplay for Pragg if he is allowed rook captures on g2. But still, after king to f1, it would be winning for Volodar. Maybe just a couple of more chances for him to mess up the position. But he says nope, just rook c6 back to d2. He offers a rook trade, and if Pragg doesn't accept it, then he's just gonna pick up the knight. So you will have to capture here, and once you capture, then rook captures on d2, and that's pretty much it. You will play a couple of more moves because your knight is hanging. You have to play something. You're gonna trade it, rook d7. Everything will come off the board, and it's just just a completely winning position for Volodar. As I like to say, both you and your uncle will win this one easily, even against Volodar, even against Pragg, even against Magnus. This position is that good. Volodar wins this, and this was played in the, like I said, in the anti-penultimate round, and then Volodar was, he was so high up in standings that he was able to just get a nice draw in his last two games. So here he defeated Pragg, then the game after this one he defeated Botnik, and then he got two draws, first against Nepo, and in the final round he faced Fabiano Caruana, and they also agreed to a quick draw as they decided that it was good for them and good for the standings. And it was it was such a crazy event. If you do have an opportunity, watch the entire stream from wherever. Dubov, what happened with Dubov, that was he said that he fell asleep, which is, if someone else said it, I wouldn't believe it. But Dubov is just such a chill guy that I actually, can believe that it's possible to fall asleep under those circumstances. Then Dubov comes back, and then he just straight out wins the last three games, defeating none other than Praggnanandhaa here in the final game. And they even published that Dubov qualified for the final 8 for the knockout stage, but they didn't use the correct criteria, and then they republished that it would actually be young Krzysztof Duda who will be playing in the final 8 instead of Daniil Dubov. So it was pretty crazy. Naroditsky also played really, really well. It was up to his final game against Wesley So, which he just agreed to a quick draw, even though for Wesley knew that a quick draw would, like 99% ensure that he goes into the final 8, but Naroditsky missed out on his chance. And there was a lot of crazy stuff. Also, Ivanchuk's game against Naroditsky, where Ivanchuk lost on time and then, just started crying. Not even crying, that was, weeping. And it was really a heartbreaking moment. But it's like Vishy said. They asked Viswanathan Anand, former world champion, the legend himself, if he misses playing, in such events, and he said that, at his age, and look at what's happening to Ivanchuk. Like, he can play against anyone, he can beat anyone, but he loses on time in a position that you really shouldn't lose. He says, I don't need that. I don't need that to be happening to me. So yeah, he was very happy just commentating on the event. But I feel like Ivanchuk is one of those players that he'll just keep playing until forever. Like, let's say Viktor Korchnoi, or some other cool people that played until they could. But yeah, let's turn to the standings. Oh, sorry about that. These are not the standings. These are the final 8. So there you have it. These are the pairings. Hans Niemann will face Magnus Carlsen. Fabiano Caruana will face Jan Krzysztof Duda. Wesley So will face Alireza Firuza. And a big Russian matchup, Jan Nepomniachtchi will face Volodar Murzin in the quarterfinals of the knockout bracket in the open section. So there you have it. And also, I'm pretty sure I have that's from the previous video, the standings, just for you guys to get an idea of who almost qualified for the final 8. So there you have it. Jan Nepomniachtchi first with 9.5 points, and then everyone else with 9.5 points as well. Fabiano Caruana, Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So Alireza, Hans Niemann, Jan Krzysztof Duda, and Volodar Murzin. Those are the top 8 that qualified to go into the knockout stage. And then almost qualified Daniel Naroditsky, also with 9.5, Danil Dubov also with 9.5. But I think Danil having one less game, that's a bit of a too big of a blow to the criteria. Otherwise, I mean, he won the last 3 games. He should be in the top 8. So very sorry to the Dubov fans, but also very nice for Jan Krzysztof Duda fans. Then Alexander Botrnik, Mikola Botrnik, Haik Martirosyan, Levon Aronyan, Sam Sevian, Leinier Dominguez Perez, and so on and so on. There are some, big names that are missing, like Hikaru Nakamura. I think he finished like 50th or something like that. Yeah, just wasn't his event. But yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I am extremely happy to have young Volodar playing in the top 8. I mean, he's not coming out of nowhere, but playing in this level of competition, winning the Rapid Championship. He's the reigning World Rapid Champion, and now he qualifies for the top 8 in Blitz. I mean, this is an elite player. Make no mistake about that. And if he, by some, not miracle, because he already has shown that he can play against everyone, beat everyone. He hasn't faced Magnus yet, so very much looking forward to that if it happens. But he first has to go through Nepo, and it's one thing to play one game against Nepo, but it's a completely different thing to play a match against Nepo. But yeah, I mean, he's 18 years old, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how far he can go. And if he by some chance becomes the World Blitz champion, then it's he is the World Rapid and Blitz champion, and there's only one place to go from that, the World Classical champion. And I can imagine him qualifying for the candidates, because he's going to win some tournament that will get him into the candidates. So yeah, anything can happen, and we'll see what happens. If we get a Volodar versus Gukesh match, I mean, okay, then they won't be 18 years old anymore, but still, such 2 young players, I mean, that will be, we will probably see some crazy lines there. But okay. Going off topic now, pretty much have shown you everything, all the info today. They said that if you're European based like I am, the World Blitz Championship will end before 12 p.m. before New Year starts, and before 12 a.m. before New Year's, so you will be able to celebrate. But I don't know who says there's a problem, enjoying chess and celebrating New Year if you celebrate New Year's. So yeah, it works either way. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Stefan Merton, Frank Pluy, an anonymous person, Timothy Rosen, and Mark Henley Brennan for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up the World Blitz Championship until it finishes. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if something happens to me, Happy New Year's, everyone.